Have you seen? So you guys haven't seen the show, Finding Your Roots on PBS. You've never seen it, Rob? Have you seen it, Humberto?
Just the clips that we've shown previously.
Okay, so there's a host. His name is Henry Louis Gates. He has a show on there where he basically like goes to people's like 23andMe, but I mean, he goes deep and he gets factual on it. So civil rights activist, he had her on there. Angela Davis was on there. And guys, if you haven't seen this video, he basically shows her and it's discovered that her ancestors were white colonists, Brian, who arrived in America on the Mayflower. And yes, they owned slaves. Kelly, this is like one of those, oh shit, oh my God.
Clip of the week.
Clip, show it.
Oh, wow.
Any idea what you're looking at? That is a list of the passengers on the Mayflower.
Look.
No, I can't believe this. No. My ancestors did not come here on the Mayflower.
Your ancestors came on the Mayflower.
No.
You are descended
from
one of the 101 people who sailed on the Mayflower.
Oof.
Yeah, I can see it.
That's a little bit too much to deal with right now.
Did you ever, in your wildest dreams, think that you may have descended from people who laid the foundation for this country?
Never.
So,
and just explain who she is exactly.
Angela Davis is a civil rights activist, ex-Black Panther. She's one of the, you know, and I respect the hell out of her for, you know, for standing up for Black people and rights. But I mean, and pushing now for reparations for Black people. It's like, I mean, technically, you owe it to your.
Like the calls coming from inside the house.
But that woman's of a certain age,
Yeah.
and I'm going to tell you this right now, as somebody who is 57. Give them a second to take that.
And he looks great.
No, but that woman is at a certain age where I promise you, she grew up in a very, very racist country.
Huge.
And so that's a fact because I remember it, you know. And we've made huge strides, but she has a very different consideration for how, you know, when you grow up and you watch your parents humiliated, you watch your parents with no power, you watch your parents with no way to go anywhere. It is impossible to be Angela Davis and not have a huge chip on your shoulder and see the world very differently. Sure. So then you find out but that is America. America. So when you own slaves, when a slave owner owns slaves, there was a whole bunch of rape and all kinds of stuff going on.
Oh yeah, horrible.
There's a lot of hanky panky in general. Yep. Also, it wasn't just rape. It was also like, you can't be around other human beings. I don't care what color they are. And you spend all that time together, sparks fly, you fall in love. Jefferson had a Black mistress who was in love with. This stuff is going to happen. That's why, for the most part, if you look at a lot of Black Americans and you compare a Black American, for example, to say someone like Don Lemon to somebody from Nigeria, it's a very different pigmentation. There's a lot of white blood and a lot of different blood in all of us. Mm-hmm. And so there was a lot of intermixing. God bless, by the way. God bless.
Yeah, no, for sure.
I love it. But that's got to be heavy.
That's heavy. And it's like, bro, the Mayflower.
But like, that goes to show you that slavery, human beings have taken slaves throughout our history.
Oh, everybody.
And it's still happening.
Now, chattel slavery may be a little bit different, certainly racial slavery, but not so anyway. The Middle East, Africa, there was
China.
Slave trade went, all of them. It's been going on forever. And this still is.
That's trippy. And then, by the way, one of my favorite shows out there, I mean, it doesn't get better than this show, The View.
I love it.
Let me explain something.
The best.
Yeah.
I mean,
where I get all my information.
I get all my information.
Whoopi.
My voting.
Sunny.
Whoopi, who, by the way,
she's just been talking about her sex life a lot more. Whoopi Goldberg.
Has she been really?
I got an insurrection going on.
If you didn't want to vomit anymore. No. But I think this is the most angriest, most bitter group of people. So when I see something like this, it actually brings joy to me because these people are just spitting hatred and divisive attitudes every single day to liberal, unhappy women all day. So it kind of made me happy. This is the moment where Sunny Hostin,
the privileged American.
Yeah. She finds out, Brian, that her family owned slaves. Kelly, can you play this one?
No way.
Oh yeah.
Wow. I'm a little bit in shock. I just always thought of myself as Puerto Rican, you know, half Puerto Rican. I didn't think
pretty.
I was, my family was originally from Spain and slaveholders.
But Brian, and you nailed it. That has to be like, bro, can you imagine standing on that hill, that mountain, just screaming? And every day she's like, black people and reparations. I wonder now that.
Let me tell you something about that girl.
Yeah.
That girl, like that is she's been getting attention from men. That she's been walking into rooms and getting anything she wanted her whole life.
For sure.
So as far as struggle and prejudice and all that, I promise you she knows nothing about it.
At all.
That girl, like right now, she's a killer. She's smart. Yeah. She's got herself this crazy
Rich.
job. She's beautiful. So stop. Listen, you privileged American. My heart ain't breaking. Of course you descend from slave owners. Look at her. Like, that's not surprising.
Pretty privilege, but what happens with pretty privilege, that's going to have an expiration date at some point. I had to learn. I remember in 2020 when we first started doing the Peabody podcast, I got into an argument. I was very, I'm a fiscal conservative. I'm in finance. I like low taxes. I want to keep my money, be smart with your money. Socially, I wasn't sure where I was.
Yeah.
Okay, but I'm a dude. I like chicks. I'm not into the whole woke, whatever that is. But I saw Glory as a kid. It changed my life. I'm like, oh my God, like I was fascinated by the Civil War. And I felt like I just rooted for black people.
Yeah.
I did.
You should.
And then I mean, okay, but to the point where now I root for the meritocracy. I'm not like, you're black, you should win.
No, I want the best person for the job.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So where am I going with this?
That's how I am.
I remember during the George Floyd stuff, I still had a sense of like, oh, the fucking cops, all right, maybe we should defund the police. I was still there, right? I don't know, George Floyd, I saw the knee on his neck. I don't like this.
Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't fully like, no, we need the police. This is what's going on. So I remember getting in an argument with a former co-host of ours. And he tried to equivocate, talk about the moral equivalency, especially in maybe the next story, of the black struggle in America. And he's like, well, the Irish, they were slaves too. And I'm like,
not like that.
I was like, relax, bro.
Sorry.
With the Irish slaves.
Sorry, that's a dummy. He doesn't know history.
Okay. And I was like, relax, bro. And he tried to convince me. I was like, I'm not buying it. But what I did come to terms with is that everyone, Jews, Christians, Muslims, Asians, the Chinese, the Africans, like every single element of society had or owned or were slaves.
Yeah.
It wasn't unique to America.
Yeah.
And this whole, woke agenda, the 1619 Project, we were founded on slavery, and this is how our country was built, and we need to tear it all down. I'm just not in that camp.
No. And by the way, go ahead, Brian.
I heard a professor, a history professor, he asked his class, when did the civil rights movement in this country begin? Anybody?
What year?
Yeah, anybody have?
It's a trick question, probably.
It's a trick question.
Because the Civil Rights Act, I think, was passed in 1964.
Yeah.
The civil rights, probably the day that a black slave probably showed up on the coast of America.
Give me some.
That's right.
what I'm talking
Like,
about.
can we just be
And
equal?
he said that
Yeah.
there is no such thing as a slave. There's a human being in bondage, and any human being in bondage wants to get out of bondage.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's just like the reason I believe in democracy, no matter what, is that everyone anywhere, I don't care what your culture, I don't care if you're in Waziristan or anything, everyone everywhere wants at least some say in who governs them. Everyone.
Yes.
And if that's the case, which I think is a human impulse, a primal impulse. I want to know who governs me. Who is that guy telling me what to do? I don't know that dude. I don't know that guy. Why is he telling me he's going to take my house? We all resist. A child, if you try to pull a spoon out of a baby's hand, they're going to grab that spoon harder.
Yep.
And you got to keep that in mind. There are certain things about capitalism, about democracy, about freedom of speech, about freedom of worship, about the things that we all take for granted too often in this country that are, it seems, natural human impulses, rights, compulsion, whatever you want to call it. But the minute you start grading against that and you start trying to equalize the playing field, what that really means is that you need someone in power to be the great equalizer.
Yeah.
And that's another way of saying, I'm going to force you to my will and to the collective will. And what's the big difference between America? What's the one thing we have to preserve? It is that the individual should not be subservient to the collective. The collective cannot supersede the rights of the individual. That's the difference between China and Russia and the United States.
But
I fully agree with you, but I think this obsession with democracy is different. Like, if it was up to me, I would export the Constitution of the United States. Like I would export having a constitutional republic, because a constitutional republic has democratic elements to it. But the way the founding fathers set up America, that's what makes it special. It's not the democracy part of it. It's because they were wary of governments. They were wary of, like tyrants.
Yep.
And they wrote that document. Like, it's actually the reason I'm here. Like, I think it's the Bible and the American Constitution.
But can I give you something? I agree with you 100%. It's the great idea of philosophy. But the Constitution itself is not what keeps things the way they are. You know what it is? So the Constitution is a piece of paper. And pieces of paper can be torn up, violated, doesn't matter. What is it that keeps this democracy? What is it that keeps this democracy a democracy?
With the people, right?
Well, it is that the founding fathers knew that the Constitution wouldn't be strong enough. You can't just write a document and have people adhere to it. It won't work. What you have to do is ensure that you organize a government that does not allow power to reside in one place, where it's impossible for one group to hold all the power.
Yes.
And that's why I love when we have these debates. I love that we have AOC, and I love Holly. I love that when I see them shouting at each other, I'm like, yes, keep it up. When I see people who are conservative going, never Trump, yes, and I see people say, I love Trump. I want all of it. I want that crazy.
Yes.
I want it to be like the river in the Amazon at night, just an orgy of just death and reproduction and everything else. That's it.
I got to tell you, I learn from you every time I'm around you, because I also learned from him
I'm just
a ton. Vinny, I'm still waiting, but I'm getting
You're gonna get there.
fine.
You're gonna
I fully agree with you. Everyone thinks, how bad is it right now? It's the worst it's ever been. Well, 1968, when our president was assassinated and MLK was
63,
assassinated.
63, yeah.
Sorry, in the 60s.
But 68 was a very, very turbulent
That's
year.
when Bobby Kennedy was
the
assassinated.
Democratic convention.
The 60s were a fucking mess.
Yep.
And then also, when a mess was, not just the 60s, the 1960s, also the 1860s. We had a little something called the Civil War here, United States. So we've always been this arguing with each other, figuring it out, and the parties have flipped. The Republicans were the Northerners, the Democrats, the Dixiecrats.
Yes.
This constant argument, this battle, is actually a good thing.
Yes.
Because if you don't have that, you have autocracies or theocrats.
And I know we have to move on. Can I get just one more thing to think about for a sec? I want you guys to think about so when you think about American culture is biracial culture. American culture would be a very boring place indeed without the African American experience. And despite slavery and despite what African Americans have gone through, I want you to think for a second about the contribution they have given to our culture. Forget language. Let's take music. The highest American art form is jazz. Jazz and, well, the blues came out of really black people in the field singing, right? That's crazy. And then we had percussion. Percussion was an African expression that was married to what? The melodic violas of Europe. So you take classical music and you mix it with African music and you get something like jazz, which then, of course, gives birth to what? Rock and roll, baby. Yeah. And everybody you guys love, everybody who, the history of rock and roll, Led Zeppelin was copying, their heroes were the great black blues singers. That's why English people who had English accents were singing in an American Western accent. They were copying their favorite black artists.
Like Elvis. What about Elvis?
All of it.
Elvis went down to the south.
All of it.
Billie Holiday.
Yes. So what I think
Louis Armstrong. These were the guys.
What I think is amazing is that a lot of the greatest artistic expression. Duke Ellington wrote more music than any, more than Mozart, more than Beethoven, more than anybody. Duke Ellington was writing songs on the hood of his car. When he had cancer, he was still writing songs. So he is one of the greatest composers of all time. All of these people did all of this as second-class citizens, as people who lived in a world where there was almost no future, where they had to go in the back door of a structure to go perform for a white audience. Wow. And they did it despite it all, despite all the insanity, despite the fact that it was actually dangerous to be a black person in the South. When you were traveling through the South, you had to plan what gas stations you could stop at to get gas. There were bathrooms you knew you couldn't use. There were places you couldn't stop to eat. It was all that, and despite all that, they created things like jazz, blues, that then gave rise to rock and roll. Where's my music? I need music to swell
TV right now.
I know, Brian. I know.
Bro,
Bro, I'm.
Brian,
and
put him
how
on.
am I this
Brian,
age? How am I this age?
Brian,
Look
please.
at that.
Brian,
That spread, bro.
Kelly, stay back.
haven't even
You're gonna make the girls.
You're
I haven't
so
even
rock
worked
and roll
out.
right
Amy,
now.
stay back.
You're
Dude,
so
what?
rock and roll
Dude,
right
I'm-
now.
Brian,
I
you're
will.
too
I
jacked.
will. I
Brian,
will.
please.
All right,
You're
sorry,
just,
bro.
Brian,
Just
because
don't.
we're-
Just don't step to me because my hands are viper quick. You know that.
I know that. And
They're viper
just
quick.
to be completely honest, because I do not like lying. You know, I'm a Christian. I'm wearing a cross.
I know.
I go to church. I didn't catch any. I didn't catch anything that you just said.
I know that.
Because I was looking at you like in awe.
I know,
It was
and
like, you're just a
your
good-looking
nipples
guy.
and your nipples got
I
hard
didn't hear
because
a word of what
when
you
I
said.
talk, you produce estrogen.
I do, bro. And by the way, whoa, where are we? Anyway, and by the way, just in closing, 1,000% agree with you too.
They're
Just-
having false pregnancies in the back. I apologize.
I hear a baby crying. Just FYI,
Where's my
when
hair?
it came to slaves coming to the United States, just to throw this out there, I might be a little bit off with the number. The United States only took about 200,000 slaves. Do you know who took the most? Which country?
Yeah.
Brazil. Like
Yeah.
10 million, 12 million slaves. If I'm right. I'm thinking of
And
numbers.
then mix that African blood with Spanish blood.
Forget it.
Oh,
Brian Bree.
God, caramel skin. Not a flat ass to be seen anywhere. Sorry.
Sorry. All right, everybody.
Sorry.